Hello, people! So, this chapter came out a day late. I waited for it all day yesterday, and it just didn't show up. And so, I was like, well, I got stuff to do on Fridays, so every time there's a change in the chapter release, it messes up my schedule. So, yeah. But, we get a poll, alright? Character poll. The results are in. We get the top 20 characters in a pretty cool color page by the end. But then when I saw the color spread, I was like, wait, there's not 20 characters. What's going on? So it's Luffy plus the top 20, excluding the Straw Hats. Notice how Jinbei gets the same treatment of not being part of the cover spread, just like the rest of the Straw Hats. The color spread, I think, is very heavy on symbolism. First of all, you have the Oriental Asian-type dragon carrying most of these characters, which I think is symbolic because I think it sort of represents the fact that we're moving on to Wano pretty soon, and Wano is based on Japan, and so, you know, Asian culture, Asian dragon, Shenron, you get the picture. Another thing that I liked was Reiju looking at Cavendish. I don't know if this is some type of foreshadowing that, you know, they might meet in the future, and because, you know, Cavendish is such a lady killer, like, Reiju may eventually fall for him or something. Not that Cavendish normally cares about fangirls, but maybe Reiju will be different. Anyway, then we have Doflamingo and Crocoboy, Crocodile. Notice how they're literally the only characters not on the dragon. They're kind of floating, you know, flying. Which is symbolic, I think, because I think Oda has made pretty clear that there is... These characters, both of these characters, are kind of like in the same box. There's a lot of connections between Dressrosa and Alabasta, you know... We're talking about both of these guys being Shichibukai, defeated by Luffy. They were both tyrants, you know, trying to establish a tyrannical rule over a country based off of fear and intimidation and all that stuff. So yeah, it's kind of symbolic that they're both, like, you know, kind of doing the same thing. Doflamingo is wearing his prison pants, because that's where he is, locked up. Ace and Sabo seem to be kind of offended or angry about the fact that Shanks is right next to them having a cup of sake, which makes sense because if you think about them as a trio, the person who should really be there drinking that sake cup should be Luffy. So maybe they're offended, like, hey, you're not supposed to be here. Luffy, this is like Luffy's reserved spot, right? Also, they're kind of competition because Ace worked under Whitebeard and Sabo works under Dragon, so it's kind of like, what is another Yonko doing here? Marco, we know we're going to see him in Wano. That's a guarantee. Nekomamushi went to find him. Then we have the Boa and Luffy straddling scene there. Although technically, I mean, if you look at Luffy's expression, he's just enjoying the ride. I don't know how into Boa he is at that point in time. And then finally we have Corazon, again, very symbolic because he's above Law, and he's like, hey kid, just looking down at him, just, I'm watching over you, and then Law is just being Law. So without any further ado, we got the monster trio with the top 3 spots on the ranking. Luffy number 1, Zoro number 2. A reminder that last poll, Zoro was number 3 because Law took that number 2 spot from him. Sanji coming in at number 3. Again, monster trio made the top 3, which is kind of cool. We got Law number 4, Ace number 5, Jinbei number 6. That was so surprising to me. Out of all of these, the 2 that surprised me the most in terms of how high they ranked were definitely Jinbei and Cavendish. Alright, Chopper number 7, Nami number 8. My man Sabo broke through the top 10. I believe last time he was a little bit higher though. And then finally, Boa Hancock at number 10. And this is where you begin to see how many votes the Thirst gets, because it's Nami, Boa, Robin, Reiju made the top 20. The Thirst is strong. I mean, there's that, but they're also pretty good female characters. At least I think so. Bartolomeo took a dive because I remember last poll he made the top 10. Now he's down at 29. Also Carrot I thought placed pretty high, as well as Pudding. I did not expect Pudding to do so well, especially because she's been flip-flopping back and forth. And last but not least, I will definitely say that if I had to switch some of these results, in my opinion, I definitely would switch Robin for Chopper, so switch those 2, and then Brook for Jinbei. And finally, Katakuri, I would switch him for Cavendish. That's just my opinion. I'm guessing that maybe the polls closed very, very soon after he was introduced. So a lot of the people... And remember, these are Japanese polls. A lot of the Japanese audience didn't really get to know Katakuri that well before the polls closed. That's just my assumption, though. It was rigged, alright? Totally rigged.
against my boy Ichiji. Don't worry, we'll get them next time, Sasuke. I promise.
So I definitely think that this chapter is going to leave people with a lot of questions, which kind of sucks considering the fact that there is no chapter next week. There's another break, okay? I will say, though, that whatever happens after this point, whatever happens next chapter, okay, is definitely going to help make or break people's opinions on the quality of this arc as a whole. Big Mom is pursuing the Straw Hats on board of King Bomb. Luffy uses his observation hockey and just straight up tells King Bomb, yo, bro, you better dodge. Whatever's coming is big. And long story short, Big Mom uses an attack called Foreign Threat and pretty much erases the side of King Bomb's face, while at the same time, the air pressure that she unleashes, it's so powerful that it basically leaves a hole in the middle of the air, just cuts through everything, and goes on to the next island, okay? And if that attack reminds you of something, it's because it should, because it's literally the same attack that Dory and Broggy did back in Little Garden when they one-shotted that Sea King with the air pressure of their weapons to help the Straw Hats escape. So the question is, where did she learn that attack from? Did she learn it when she was little growing up in Elbaf? Did she eventually go back to Elbaf to learn it? Or did she meet a giant along her travels? The second slash is coming. Luffy says there's no way we'll be able to dodge the second one. He's about to do something. He says, ow. And then Nami, unfortunately, cuts him off. I really wanted to see what he would do in that situation against like this type of power. And I guess that's Oda just kind of keeping it a secret for now. And Nami actually says, I have an idea. She does the black ball technique. And this is definitely the part of the chapter that's got people talking and complaining and arguing, because as if Nami having a second half of Lola's Vivre card wasn't enough, if that wasn't convenient enough, all of a sudden Zeus drops Big Mom because he goes off course following this trail of little gummy bears or cloud candies that he really likes. Now here's the thing, I did notice that when Nami first did the technique, immediately after she does the technique, Jinbei steps in front of her. You don't get to see his face in the panel, but you literally see Jinbei in front of Nami. You want to know why? Because if that hadn't worked, Nami would literally be dead. Jinbei was ready to take one for the team, y'all. Page 9 manga stream if you don't believe me. Anyway, so I can obviously see why people think, oh, like this is so convenient, right? Nami has control over Zeus. Except she doesn't. It actually took me 2 reads to notice that she absolutely has no control. By the end of this chapter, she literally has no authority over him. On page 12, Nami asks Zeus, if I give you these dark little clouds that you like so much, will you be my servant? Initially, the first time I read the chapter, okay, I thought that Zeus had said, I will. But no, that speech bubble belongs to Sanji, which is why Jinbei says she's not asking you, okay? So Zeus is conflicted because you get to see a speech bubble that says, huh? That's Zeus. And you see the sweat drops even on the speech bubble, right? And he's really conflicted. He's like, at first, he's like, what should I do? Like, really? Like, you're complimenting me? Wow, this is really cool. But I don't know what to do here. And you can't ride me because there are rules. Only Big Mom can ride me, which that may be foreshadowing for Luffy eventually riding him. But, that's not the point. The point is that up until this chapter, Zeus doesn't really do anything aside from dropping Big Mom. Is he going to be under Nami's command or try and help the Straw Hats escape at some point? It's very likely, but I'm not going to call it out until it actually happens because you see him, the only thing he says, all right, is he turns back and he says, this is bad because Mama's very angry. And then we don't get to see him again for the entire chapter. So again, whatever happens next chapter, that's going to be the defining moment because then that's where we really get to see the consequences. I loved that Prometheus scene though. I thought it looked great. The shading, the lighting that Oda gave the environment during that scene was great. Just a giant nuke falling on, setting everything ablaze. And what's cool about it is that Prometheus, the sun, is a star. And our sun, if you think about it, will eventually explode. It'll eventually burn out, but before it does so, it'll expand. And then it'll just consume everything in its path, and then it'll just explode. So I kind of like the reference to the fact that Prometheus is technically a sun, and it's behaving like one. Long story short, the Big Mom pirates are creating a perimeter around Totland to make sure that the Straw Hats do not escape. We see Mondur there with the slugs. You have Brûlé there in Mirror World. You have an army of these pawns or whatever, like the chess pieces. And then Katakuri is at the Sunny waiting for Luffy to show up. Now, I'm assuming that the reason for why he's there, somebody asks him, why are you even here? Like, why are you waiting for him if you know that Big Mom can take him out? He says, just in case, but I happen to think that I think Katakuri saw something happening near the Sunny, so that's why he wants to be there. Because if he sees a vision, whenever you have a vision, not that people have visions, but let's say that you were able to see the future, you have to look for a landmark, something that's stable, so that you know where it's going to happen, right? And you have to remember that observation hockey is not just about seeing like 2 seconds into the future, it's also about developing your intuition. Like last week, right, or like the chapter last time where Katakuri said, if we don't stop this kid, he's going to be a problem. So, you know, something is drawing him to the Sunny to stick around there for some reason. I think in essence, though, the main point of this chapter is that nobody gets to leave the island unless they deal with Big Mom's craving issue. Okay, Capone's not going to leave because Chiffon is compromised now. Okay, so, you know, I'm pretty sure Beige is not going to leave his wife there, so he's sticking around. All right, we still have to see the Vinsmokes and get some closure out of them because we haven't seen Judge's face, so maybe they'll show up. And Katakuri's at the Sunny, so it's like, what's going to happen? You have to address the issue. All right, and at this point, again, I personally don't like it, but it seems like it's going to be making that cake for Big Mom. Maybe Sanji's going to be using one of those 99 vital recipes that he learned during the time skip from Ivankov. I also recently heard about the change that Oda decided to make in regards to Katakuri's Devil Fruit ability. Instead of making it a Logia like it was originally introduced, it's now a unique Paramecia. So I kind of want to learn more about what that means. I will say though, and I said this in the beginning when I first saw his Devil Fruit in action. To me, Katakuri's Devil Fruit reminds me a lot of Luffy's Devil Fruit, except it's sticky. I don't remember, at one point I think Capone shoots at him, and I don't remember if the bullets pass through him or if he kind of absorbs them and just kind of gives them back the way that Luffy would normally do. I also know that, you know, there are some aspects of Katakuri's Devil Fruit that definitely do behave like a Logia, but that can just be like a coincidence because of the element or the substance being so malleable, right? And then finally, I know that he was able to create these the earplugs that he made out of Mochi. I think he created them out of thin air. But if you watch the anime, Cracker literally just claps and he creates biscuits out of thin air. So, you know, I'm pretty sure Cracker is a Paramecia. I do not see the problem with that.
Also, can you imagine Katakuri's awakening? That'd be crazy.
I did say in my previous, like the One Piece reaction, I did say that Pudding was going to flip-flop again. That was really obvious, so she's going to make the cake. I don't know how strong her feelings for Sanji really are. At this point, I think that girl is trouble. I mean, she changes her mind so much. It's problematic. I definitely... Sanji, I think Sanji, you can do better, my man. You can definitely do better. Get somebody who's a little bit more stable, all right? Also, oh, I forgot. So... at this point in time, I think that Capone is near the area where he shot Bobbin. And I've seen some theories say that what's going to happen by the end of the arc is that they're going to use Bobbin to put people to sleep. Because why would you introduce Bobbin's ability of putting people to sleep for no reason? They're going to put people to sleep, and then actually after that, Pudding is going to use her ability to sort of change and swipe the memories around.
Also, I'm not really sure if all these special homies are the same. Like, maybe each of them represents a specific aspect of Big Mom's personality, and maybe Zeus is her gluttonous side, you know, the hungry side. And so, based off of the way that Zeus behaved in this chapter,
it's kind of setting up, it's foreshadowing Big Mom eventually coming to a crossroads where in which she's going to have to decide what she wants most. Destroying the Straw Hats or getting that cake. She can't have both, I think. So she's going to have to make the choice, decide what her priorities are, and that's going to lead to the climax and the ending of this arc. That's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like the review if you did. I appreciate that. Subscribe for more One Piece reviews. Comment down below with your thoughts. Catch you guys later. Bye.